as an alcoholic, I talk about, some warning signs, like DUIs in a cul-de-sac, things like that. The idea of, have you been through it, to talk about it and see, this is what you go through. Heart surgery, alcoholism. I went to rehab in wine country just to keep my options open. These are things you got to talk about.
Robin Williams wasn't just a comedian. He was magic. He could walk into a room and completely change the energy. His voice, his timing, his improvisation. It wasn't just talent. It was otherworldly. He had the rare ability to make people feel understood, seen, and healed through laughter. But behind the scenes, Robin was constantly carrying a weight few ever knew. Addiction, anxiety, an overwhelming need to please everyone. And yet, despite all of that, he kept showing up. Until he didn't. On August 11, 2014, the world lost one of its brightest lights. The headlines were swift and brutal. Robin Williams, dead by suicide at the age of 63. The news stunned fans across the world. It seemed impossible. How could someone so full of life, someone who gave so much joy to others, be hiding so much pain? The narrative quickly took shape. Depression, a sad clown who couldn't laugh anymore. It was heartbreaking, but also convenient. The media had its story. But what if that version wasn't entirely true? This is Industry Eye, and today we're breaking down the final days of Robin Williams. Not just the pain, but the misdiagnosis, the medical failure, and the possibility that the entertainment industry played a bigger role in his decline than anyone wants to admit. To understand Robin's death, you have to understand what he was going through in the last years of his life. Robin had always struggled with mental health. He spoke candidly about his battles with alcoholism and cocaine. He went to rehab multiple times and was always honest about the war going on inside his head. But in 2013, something changed. Robin began showing symptoms that confused even him. He had trouble remembering his lines on set. He experienced anxiety attacks, insomnia, and even hallucinations. His motor skills began to decline, and no one could tell him why. Doctors eventually diagnosed him with early-stage Parkinson's disease. That news devastated him, but it wasn't the truth. After his death, an autopsy revealed something far more disturbing. Robin had Lewy body dementia, a rare and aggressive brain disease that affects thought, movement, and behavior. It's often misdiagnosed as Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, but it progresses far more rapidly and is far more psychologically devastating. According to medical experts, by the time Robin died, his brain was one of the worst cases of Lewy body dementia they had ever seen. So, why didn't anyone catch it? Why was he being treated for a disease he didn't actually have? Why was he working under immense stress when his mind was deteriorating? And why, when he began to question his own sanity, did the industry keep pushing him? It's no secret that Robin was under pressure to keep working. In the years before his death, he took on multiple roles just to stay financially stable. He was reportedly dealing with financial issues following his divorces and bad investments. Despite his fame, Robin couldn't afford to retire, so he signed on to star in CBS's The Crazy Ones, a sitcom that was canceled after one season. He also filmed Night at the Museum 3 while in visible physical and emotional decline. According to crew members, he struggled with memory loss on set. He cried between takes. He was in pain, but the cameras kept rolling. Robin's wife, Susan Schneider Williams, later revealed that Robin was losing his mind and knew something was seriously wrong. She described watching him deteriorate, unable to sleep, paranoid, confused, and frustrated that no one could explain what was happening. She said that he wasn't just sad, he was terrified. He was aware of the decline, and that awareness, paired with the misdiagnosis, made his suffering unbearable. But here's where the story gets darker. Robin wasn't just another actor. He was someone who had spent decades navigating the darkest corners of the entertainment industry. He had seen what it did to people. He'd watched fellow comedians and actors fall to addiction, depression, and suicide. And in many ways, he knew the system was broken. He once said comedy is acting out optimism, but he also said the only reason comedians go on stage is because we need that love. He needed it, but he also understood the cost. Some believed that Robin was beginning to pull back the curtain, that he was becoming a liability for an industry that doesn't like unpredictable, sick, or outspoken talent. He had been in Hollywood long enough to see what happened to stars who stopped playing the game. He had been openly critical of the corporate nature of filmmaking, of the way studios care more about profit than people. In a world where image is everything, a deteriorating Robin Williams, slurring his words, forgetting lines was a problem. And instead of helping him, the machine moved on. Even in death, the narrative was tightly controlled. Depression was the key word pushed across every platform. No mention of the rare brain disease, no mention of the doctors who failed him, no deeper discussion about how the entertainment world treats aging or sick talent. It was neat, simple, digestible, but misleading. It wasn't until a year later that Susan came forward with the full truth, and even then, her story was buried under gossip headlines and celebrity scandals. In her heartbreaking essay, The Terrorist Inside My Husband's Brain, she detailed just how misunderstood Robin's illness was and how devastating it became. Lewy body dementia, she said, was chemical warfare in the brain, and Robin was aware that he was changing, but helpless to stop it. So, again, we ask, why wasn't this the story we were told from the start? Why was the focus solely on depression and suicide and not on a disease that could help raise awareness and save lives? Why did the industry allow him to suffer in silence, push him to work under impossible conditions, and then wash their hands of him once he was gone? And maybe the scariest question of all, how many more Robin Williamses are out there? Talented, beloved icons slowly slipping through the cracks of a system that rewards performance but punishes pain. How many more are misdiagnosed, misunderstood, and mislabeled while the machine around them keeps making money? Robin Williams was more than a victim. He was a truth teller. Through characters like John Keating, Mrs. Doubtfire, Jeannie, and Sean Maguire, he taught millions to embrace emotion, to chase passion, and to never settle for silence. But when it came time for his own pain to be acknowledged, the world gave him silence in return. The truth of his condition was hidden. His final moments were simplified, and the industry that once called him brilliant quietly moved on to the next project. This is Industry Eye, and today we looked behind the laughter, behind the diagnosis, behind the legacy. The story of Robin Williams wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was a case study in how the entertainment industry fails the very people who give it life. The question isn't whether Robin Williams was loved. The question is whether the people who loved him, the ones in power, the ones with resources, the ones who saw his decline, actually did anything to help. Maybe the truth is this. In a world where image matters more than truth, where profit outweighs compassion, and where silence is easier than accountability, Robin Williams became another warning, a soul too bright for a system built on shadows.